and welcome to a new unit in computer science. This one is all about computational thinking. Computational thinking is the art of taking a problem and finding ways to simplify that problem so that it can be solved more easily. It applies in computer science, but also outside computer science. In all walks of life, being able to solve problems by simplifying it is a hugely important skill. There are four main sections to it, and today we're going to look at one of the easier ones, which is decomposition. Before we start, I want you to have a guess at what you think decomposition might mean. So which of these four definitions is the correct definition for decomposition from a computer science perspective? To help you out, think about what decomposition means outside computer science. In biology, for example, when something decomposes, what does that mean? See if that helps. 30 seconds, choose which of those is the correct definition. Okay, hopefully you've chosen one. All of these definitions actually are things we'll look at over the next few weeks in this course. All of them are definitions of different techniques used in computational thinking. But the correct one for decomposition is this one. Breaking a problem down into smaller, more manageable parts. So similar to how a leaf breaks down into smaller parts when it decomposes, a problem can be decomposed into smaller, more manageable parts. So, as we discovered in the starter, decomposition is the act of taking a large problem and breaking it down into smaller problems. That's very useful in computer science and outside, because big problems are usually difficult to solve, require a lot of resources, and can often make people give up. Whereas if we have a lot of smaller problems, each of which is relatively easy to solve, that can be a lot better. Spending a bit of time working on one easy problem, then another easy problem, then another easy problem is often a much preferable solution to trying to solve the whole thing at once. Now the thing is, many logical thinkers, people that are good at maths, people that are good at computer science, people that are good at programming, will do this automatically to some extent or another. In fact, everybody will do some form of decomposition. We'll always be given a problem and think, well, what do I need to do to solve this problem? What are the parts of what I need to do? But formalising it, looking at it from a formal perspective, is a really useful skill in computer science. And those of us that aren't good at breaking problems down, this might help you get better at it. So before we look any further, I want you to make a note wherever you're making notes. If you've got your books with you, make a note in your book. If you haven't, then you need some paper, or you can make a note on the computer. But wherever you're making your notes, write down the definition of decomposition. Decomposition is the act of taking a large problem and breaking it down into smaller, more manageable problems. Give you 10 seconds to do that, and then we'll carry on. Okay. So let's have a look at an example of decomposition. We're going to decompose a maths problem. So you're asked the following question. Which class in year 8 is the tallest? Now that's quite an in-depth problem. That's not something you can immediately answer. But if we start decomposing it, we can get to a point where we can find out the solution with relative ease. So as we initially can't answer it, we need to think, what could this consist of? So the question, which is the tallest class, we probably need to do two things. We probably need to find the average height of each student of each class in year 8 and then compare those averages and find which one is the highest. So the second part's easy. Once you've got the average heights, you can easily look through and see which one is the biggest. But finding the average height of the student, not so easy. So let's decompose that further. Let's take that challenge and decompose it. Well, we could do that by asking every student in year 8 for their form and their height. Once we have that, we can group all the forms together, add up all the heights for each form and divide by how many you had. That will get us the average for each form, and then we can go through the next step and find out which one is the tallest. We can represent this as a decomposition diagram or decomposition chart. At the top level here is the problem we're trying to solve. Beneath it is our first layer of decomposition. We broke that down into these two steps: get the average height of each class and select the maximum of the average heights. The next level down here is the next level of decomposition. We took the get the average height of each class and we decomposed that further by splitting that up into smaller tasks. Ask Year 8 students for their height and form and then calculate the averages for each class. We can decompose it even further. If calculating the average for each class is not straightforward how to do, we can split that into further steps, saying group each form together, then add the heights together and divide by the number of heights. So now, if we look along the bottom row, we look along the end of each chain, each of those tasks is easy. Ask Year 8 students for their height and form. Easily done. Group the forms together. Easily done. Add the heights together, divide them by the number of heights. Easily done. Select the maximum of the average heights. All of those are easy tasks, and together they add up to solve our top level problem, which is find the tallest Year 8 class. Let's look at another example. This is a real world problem. Let's say you wanted to get someone to change the washer fluid in a car. Let's say I asked you, just go change the washer fluid in my car. Well, other than the obvious objections and refusals to do it, the first thing is you probably wouldn't know how. So me just giving you that top level instruction is no use. What I need to do is give you instructions for how to do it. How do I get those instructions? I decompose the problem. So if I start with my top level problem, I'm doing this one left to right because it fits the screen better, which is fill washer fluid. I break that down. What are the steps needed to do that? Well, because I've done this before, I know the steps are open the bonnet, open the washer fluid cap, add the fluid, close the cap, close the bonnet. Well, then what I think about is, do any of these need to be decomposed further? Well, if someone hasn't done it before, I'll probably need to tell them how to open the bonnet of the car, because it's not that straightforward. I'll also probably need to tell them how to add the fluid, because I know it's going to need mixing up from a concentrated solution and water. So I'll decompose those further. Pull the bonnet release lever and lift the bonnet up, and then adding fluid can be decomposed to mix fluid with water and pour into a tank. So with that done, I can then take the end of each chain, which is these, and turn it into an instruction list. So our final instruction list is pull up the bonnet release lever, lift up the bonnet, open the washer fluid cap, mix the fluid with water, pour into the fluid tank, close the cap and close the bonnet. Those are fairly good instructions, nice and easy to follow, and much better than just saying fill up the washer fluid. So a task for you to have a go at now is to read the pages of the decomposition section on BBC Bitesize. The link is on the VLE. It gives more detail of the stuff I've just talked about. It is mainly the stuff I've just discussed, but it goes into more detail and discusses it in a different way, which some of you might find really useful. It then uses an example of solving a crime and decomposes that. So it talks about the idea of we need to solve a crime, what steps do we need to go through to get there, how do we decompose that problem. So using their example, I'd like you guys to make a decomposition diagram, the things we've just seen two examples of, for solving a crime. Use Bitesize to help you with it. If you get stuck, then during the live section for the second half of this lesson, we can discuss it then. But do your best. There's enough information on the website if you should be able to do this. Okay, so this should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Pause the video here. Once you've done it, resume the video and we'll carry on. Okay, so hopefully you've managed to do that. If not, we'll help you out with it later on. So the main task for this one is to now complete the quiz on the VLE. Now I want to make very clear that it's only a 10 quiz, there are 3 questions in total, but you should be getting the full 10 out of 10. All those questions can be answered with the information I've just given you. This isn't a checkpoint. You're allowed to look back over the notes you made, you're allowed to look back over the presentation here, which is on the VLE, or anything else you need. So if you get to a question, you're not sure how to answer it, find out the answer, use the presentation, look it up. Don't just guess and move on. If people submit the quiz and you've only got 2 or 3 marks, that's going to be classed as having not done the work, because part of the work is to use your notes you made to answer the question. So this should only take you about 5 minutes or so, but can you complete the quiz on the VLE, and once you've done that, if you have time left, there's an extension task. We're going to use decomposition to design an app. Just designing an app is really complicated. If we ask you just to design a new app, you're unlikely to know where to start. So if we decompose it, we can get this list of things to consider. This is a decomposed list. We need to think about what kind of app we want to create, what the app will look like, who the target audience is, what the graphics will look like, what the audio will be, what software we'll use to build it, how the user will navigate the app, how we'll test our app, how we'll sell the app. All of those things are stuff to be considered, and each of those are things you can start answering, whereas just design an app is way too complicated. So the extension task is to go onto the VLE and into this task, and there's a template provided in there. If you don't want to use the template, you don't have to. Read the task carefully in the VLE. But design your app by answering each of those decomposed parts of the problem. If you use a template, each of the boxes on there is easy to fill in, and you can design your app that way. Once you've done it, if you printed it and did it by pen, fine. Take a photo of it, scan it, upload it to the VLE. If you did it on the computer, save the file, upload that to the VLE so we can see it. This is an extension. If you've spent all your time working on the rest of it and you've already done the blue task to a really good score, that's fine. If you've got time left, this is the stuff to work on. So once that's done, upload it, and then we'll talk to you in the live part of the lesson coming up.